Really, really excited. So I'm Dr. Rodrigo Imaña. I really want to start out and introduce myself, kind of like how I came to this world, how I was born. I was born a preemie. I'm from Bolivia. I was born in La Paz, Bolivia, where it's like 4,000 meters. Actually, when you land there, sometimes there's people that faint. So, yeah, and there's oxygen tanks, you know, people come up and, yeah, so anyways. So I was born there, and I was born a preemie at 7 months. When I was born, they said, oh, stillbirth, he's probably just, yeah, I think he's dead. And then they put me in, this, obviously all my parents told me this. They put me in an incubator for a month. And in the incubator, apparently I kept going in and out, where I like zero line, and they said like, oh, he's gone. And then I would come back to life, to the point where there was a priest that came over and said like, okay, yeah, he's dead. But I'm saying that because it led me to do what I do. Since I was little, I was always fascinated. I was like, what does it mean to really be alive? And what's the opposite of that? What does it mean to not be alive, you know? And it was an interesting kind of concept to think about. I was a little strange little kid sometimes, but at the same time, my first month of life, I had no human touch, because in the incubator, you just had to put on gloves and, you know, all of that. So I had this void to fill where I was like, I need human interaction, right? And what I do now as a chiropractor, I think, is connected to that. At the same time, when I was 6 months, my mom passed. And then I remember I did a hypnosis about 5 years ago where I had to go back to that moment where my mom passed. It was like, okay, I'm a baby, I'm 6 months, you know? And I felt that. I wasn't physically with my mom, but I felt when she passed, and it was a major heartbreak, my first heartbreak. And my whole body distorted. I remember that in my hypnosis. So what do I do now, right? I get people in alignment. I restore that alignment and symmetry in the human body, which I'll go into in a sec. And fast forward, I was in chiropractic school, and I remember I had to write down, like, what's your ideal client? I think a lot of us who own businesses, we always identify what's our ideal client, right? And some of my classmates, they were talking about, I don't know, sports, you know, some of my friends only work with animals and all that stuff. I was like, okay, what am I gonna write? And I started writing, you know, mid-30s, female, you know, blah, 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 blah. I was describing my mom. And at the time, the therapist who was guiding me said, okay, who are you really trying to save, right? And I realized that my practice is about 80% female. So it's really interesting how what we go through in our lives leads us to what we do, consciously or unconsciously. I really learned this concept when there was this neurophysiologist who, it wasn't a Nobel Prize, but he had won this prize in his field. And he found out 3 months before he won this prize that his mom was his sister. So here I know. What happened was, back in the days, there was I think about teenager who was pregnant, and then you couldn't have that in this town. And the teenager was kept at home to give birth, and then was sent to a convent right after the little girl gave birth. So then this baby was born and raised, who was actually the grandma, right? But he dedicated his life to identify and decode the DNA, which was his prize. So sometimes we have all these things that happen to us consciously or unconsciously that lead us to our purpose. So let's fast forward now, like me being in chiropractic school and all that. And when I got in it, I was like, oh, I'm not sure about this whole popping and twisting. You know, I was like, And I said, you know, I don't know if you remember my first visit here, I was like, I don't do crack, you know, because it's, yeah. But what really happened was I wanted to find out where in this profession are the miracles happening, right? Where I've heard people say like, oh, this person came out of a coma from an adjustment. I was like, I want to do that, you know, like where can I really allow life to manifest. And that's when I got into the profession, they're like, okay, yeah, there's like 500 different techniques. But I was like, yeah, but where are the miracles? And I noticed from 500 techniques, it narrowed down to 23 techniques that focus at the base of the brain. And I was like, okay, at least I narrowed it down, and I wanted to go in deeper and find out, okay, which one of those really stands out, right? And that's where I decided to go into the technique called NUCCA. It's NUCCA. And it just so happens to be one of the most challenging techniques to master. It takes a long time, a lot of dedication. But there's less than 300 of us in the world. It's been over 100 years. It started in the 1920s, at the turn when there was the whole kind of like quantum physics type of people, all of that. That's where it kind of developed. It's a very holistic and very delicate approach to reposition the skull back into alignment. I was like, okay, this is great. Challenging, but I love that, And I realized it was challenging and an ever-ending love for this technique when one of my mentors who practiced until he was 91, he passed away at 93, but when he was 90, I was there in his talk and he said, hey, I finally got it. I could finally do a really good adjustment. And this is him at 90 years old, still seeing patients. And when he said that, I loved it. I was like, oh my God, there's a never-ending kind of love for this approach. So I was like, okay, let me learn it, let me go into it. And then the miracles started happening. And it's been amazing, kind of seeing change after change with so many people. I remember one of the stories that really, because one of my other mentors had shared with me, he said, hey, I'm going to share a story. This is amazing. I had this guy who came in with shoulder pain. So he came in with shoulder pain, and he would always bring his 9-year-old daughter in. He was always playing up front. But 3 months into the care, his shoulder pain was still there. And I was like, okay. And he was like, okay, progress exam time. Let's see how you're doing. And he was like, yeah, shoulder pain's still there, it's kind of thing like, yeah, but I noticed you bring your daughter in too. Maybe, let's ask her. Maybe she noticed if you improved. He was like, I don't know. Okay, brought the daughter in and said like, okay, has anything changed with your dad? And she's like, oh, yeah. Like, yeah, well, tell me. And then she started crying. And then the doctor was like, oh, okay, sorry. And she said, yeah, I've noticed since my dad started coming here that he doesn't hit me anymore. And they were all emotional. So what was happening there, right? And why did that change kind of happen with this approach? My main concept is to restore life for people, to restore full, authentic expression of who you really are. Whether that's to heal and cure from low back pain or something like that, or whether that's to express your full potential, to be happier, to just be, right? Like that's what I'm really there for. And the technique that I do is not meant to go after a symptom. It's really meant to just allow you to manifest your full expression. I had a patient who came in. He was going through so many symptoms, post-concussion syndrome, that he had a brain injury. And he said, hey, imagine this is, I think, my first year in practice. And he told me, if what you do doesn't work, I'm gonna commit suicide. And imagine, young doc, and then that happens, like, do I supposed to report this? And now he's going into chiropractic school, And I have so many of these stories. I had someone who, she was 6 years old, couldn't talk, mobile. I did the technique. She's now making sounds. She's going to, it's story after story from things that I didn't even really realize would happen. I've had women who came in who couldn't conceive and become pregnant. And I remember I was like, hey, I've seen this possible. But you might get pregnant. She came in for neck discomfort. I told her, in 2 months, you might get pregnant. She had tried IVF. Her and her husband had done so many things. But I was like, okay, spec miracles. I used to have this big sign on the wall that said spec miracles, right? And I was like, okay. And then 2.5 months in, she got pregnant. And now she always invites me to the baby's birthday and all this. I think the baby's like 2.5 now. But I've had many of these stories before. That's why I was able to kind of say that, right? So in my practice, I take care of not just adults. My youngest patient was an hour old. This was my patients told me they were very holistic. The baby was born at home with a midwife and doula. And then right after the baby was born, I was like checking the baby, make sure the baby was doing okay in alignment. When you're a baby, obviously your bones haven't really ossified, right? They're still like, But many babies that I've taken care of sometimes come in with torticollis, or they regurgitate, or colicky babies, all the way to elderly. And so family care is kind of like where the practice is kind of gearing towards now. Let's not wait until you actually have a symptom. I always tell people, listen to your body when it whispers so it doesn't have to scream, right? Because many times when let's say those of us, well, I don't know the car anymore, but when we own a car, what was that?
That's got to be your new tagline.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to put that in the back of my card. So essentially, like when we own a car, right, we don't wait until the red engine light comes on until we ever take it, right, to a mechanic. Oh, maybe, right? We may do a tune-up, right.
You have a lot of patience in this room.
I know, right? Yeah. But we do a tune-up, we change the oil, we balance the tires and all this stuff. But do we really do that for ourselves? Do we really do those little tune-ups? Do we really make sure like everything is functioning right? So what you guys have there, the little pamphlet things, is essentially, I wanted to give you guys a gift. It's essentially just the initial exam. I don't accept everybody for care. I really want to make sure that my approach can even help you at all. So sometimes the assessments that I do and the technique, I may say like, hey, there might not be areas that I can help you with, but I wanted to kind of gift you guys. So in the back, there's a little QR code. I gave this huge discount for anybody who's present here today. So I'm really excited about that. There's only a catch. I wanted to make sure that you guys can come in within the next month. So that's kind of like where the deal, because I gave a discount there to see if I can help. And if you guys can't, it's not for you, but you might hear someone's like, hey, this person might be beneficial to a friend or something like that. I wanted to end today by sharing that my mission in life is to expand people's potential to love themselves and the world. And I've done that so much, and I love it, and it's a full expression. But now in my life, I have someone who's doing that for me, and it's my girlfriend, Claudia. It's amazing to now feel very loved and very just cared for. So I'm really happy that she's here with me, and I'm really happy to be able to share what I do, a little bit of my story with you guys. So thank you.